If you think of the birthplace of wine, up to actually a year and a half ago, people thought the birthplace of wine was around Iran, Iraq. So if I take my little, voila, I'm gonna, oops, voila, size is small, voila. It was expected to be around here. I don't know if people say it, roughly, in this area. This is called Mesopotamia. But then a year ago, roughly, it was discovered that in Georgia, which actually is just behind, unfortunately, this little, so it's up, it's here. Let me just put it. Voilà. It's just above. Voilà, this is Georgia. It was discovered that in Georgia there existed vats which dated 8,000 years ago. So a little bit older than what was initially in what was Mesopotamia. And so now we have a history of winemaking that goes back 8,000 years. But that may only be temporary because as soon as we find other vats that are older, then maybe, yeah, we'll figure out that wine has existed even longer. But obviously it's a liquid, it's a produce that was made when people started to become sedentary because you needed to plant grapes and actually stay with those grapes in order to produce your wines. So you were not talking about nomads anymore who were traveling all the time, but people who really set up a home and started agriculture. And what happened is over the course of the next or the following 2,000 years or 1,500 years, and here I'll go into, let's say, blue, wine made its way through to the Middle East here. Why? Because the Middle East at the time was also a part that was I mean, there was always been a part that has been inhabited. Good weather, good conditions made it easy for people to live there. And so wine arrived approximately 6,000 years ago in Lebanon, or at least in what is now Lebanon. Now, it could have been just a random event, but what turned out to be an extremely important factor for wine in general was that the Phoenicians, who are our ancestors who lived in modern day Lebanon, started developing methodologies to produce wines. They used amphoras out of clay to produce them and mostly knew how to store them. And eventually, because the Phoenicians were mostly trade people, they used to have ships. They used to sell many things across the whole Mediterranean, and so they started selling cedar wood. They sold things coming from Asia, so silk, and they also sold wine. And so they initially then started to sell to Egypt. So the pharaohs started buying the wines from the Phoenicians. And then also the Phoenicians went even more westwards to, I guess, what is now Tunisia, and then eventually to Greece, Italy, France, Portugal, and maybe some say even England. And so there, it's really through